Hello, kids. Another day, another reading from The Elements of Bree. Chapter 2, Aunt Margaret. As she burst through the door, the savory smell from the goulash cooking in the pot on the stove hit her, and she stopped. Even though it wasn't her favorite meal, it gave her comfort to smell and know she was home. Her aunt was in the kitchen humming her favorite tune, the Ballad of Arion. She used to hum the tune to Bree at night when she was a child. It was one of her favorite tunes, even if she didn't know the words, if there were words to the song at all. She hesitated when she heard the tune. The panic she was feeling began to calm. "Bree, my dear," Aunt Margaret called from the kitchen. "Is that you?" Her accent was as thick as everyone else in the village, and yet it made her smile. "Yes, Auntie, it's me," she replied. "I'm in the kitchen, love." Like the rest of the people in her village, her Aunt Margaret used cute nicknames when talking to her. Love, my dear, and sweetheart were most of the used terms of endearment for not only her but many others. Brienne kicked off her boots and ran into the kitchen. Her Aunt Margaret was stirring the goulash in the pot with a mixing spoon in one hand and sprinkling in some spices from a container with the other. It was mid-afternoon, but the old lady still hadn't changed out of her nightgown and robe. She was in her mid-70s and didn't seem to care about what others thought of her. Aunt Margaret had lived in Passerelle her whole life, but never worked. Her husband had been a fisherman who died at sea long before Brienne was born. She had no desire to work and preferred to be the best housewife her husband ever had. Now she spent her days being the best guardian she could for Brienne. "You busted in here like a mad thing," Aunt Margaret exclaimed as she put the spices back. "What's the rush?" Brienne didn't answer her for a moment, causing Aunt Margaret to stop stirring and look at her. "My goodness, love, you look as white as a ghost. What happened?" Brienne began, but paused again. I killed something, I think." "You think you killed something?" "I was coming through the forest out back, and I went across Rogers Creek near the old stone bridge. There was some sort of creature there that said my name and came after me. So I shot it with a slingshot and finally killed it, I think." Her aunt's eyes were wide in surprise. "That's quite a story." "It's not a story, it's true. I think I killed it." "Why do you keep saying you think you killed it?" Brienne sat at the table. "When I shot it with a slingshot with a larger stone, it sort of exploded into shimmering dust." Aunt Margaret slowly sat across from her and stared. When she spoke, the tone of her voice changed. "Tell me exactly what happened." Brienne took a deep breath and told her all the story of the sea creature. She was surprised how well her aunt listened to her, nodding at appropriate times, never questioning her. When she was done, she waited patiently for Aunt Margaret's response. For a few moments, the old lady said nothing. Finally, she stood, returned to the goulash on the stove, and stirred it. "What color was the shimmering in the dust?" her aunt finally asked, her accent no longer as thick as it usually was. But that wasn't the response Brienne was expecting. "Why does that matter?" she asked. "Just answer the question." Her aunt's tone was strange. She didn't sound angry, but she did sound different. Brienne tapped the table as she thought. "I don't remember. Was it a reddish gold?" Brienne stopped tapping and looked up. "Now that you say it, yes, it was reddish gold." "Rose gold, blood of gold," her aunt mumbled, but said it loud enough for Brienne to hear. "What does that mean?" she asked. Aunt Margaret turned the heat on the stove down and turned to face Brienne. "What you saw, Brienne, my love, was a sea hag, and it's not from this world." "I don't understand, Auntie." Her aunt dried her hands on the dish towel that was tucked into her bathrobe drawstrings and then placed it on the counter. "You need to come with me." And that is the end of chapter 2. Aunt Margaret. What secrets does she have? Join in tomorrow as I read the next chapter, The Attic in the Barn.